When you speak at a conference, here are 7 key tips to make the most out of the experience for you. Number 1, you've got to remember that when you're in the main room, if there are 50, 60, 100, however many people in the audience, they can see you before you get up on the podium. And a lot of new speakers forget this, and what they end up doing is looking really nervous. So it's likely you could be a bit nervous, a bit excited, whatever. And often, I'm going to be honest with you, stuff goes wrong. So it's very, very common when you get to a conference, you look around, you see who the speakers are, and you'll see some poor soul chewing the remains of their fingernails off, jogging from spot to spot. Stuff's going to go wrong, you're going to feel nervous, all those things are going to happen. But what you need to do is to remember that people can see you before you go up the steps and before you come down the steps. So if you get yourself into a habit of remembering you can be seen, treat before you go on the podium almost as part of the performance. So look fairly relaxed if you can, smile if you really want to go for it, but also remember when you come down the steps, you don't suddenly become invisible. So keep that calmness or that smile or whatever until you go back to your seats while the next speaker's on. Number 2, bit of a strange one, but practice walking up the steps onto the podium, standing behind the little thing, and the first few words out of your mouth. Now, I know that sounds silly, but if you don't, here's what will happen. You'll do it, you might slip on one of the steps, maybe your trousers are too tight, your shoes are too slippy or squeaky, and you don't want to discover that in front of a room full of people. It's like the first few words out of your mouth. Practice what you're going to say, so that when you walk up, you can look and sound super confident. If you are lucky enough to be one of the first people speaking, perhaps to get the whole conference, the whole event started, then think about what you are going to say. Are you going to tell a story, just a very brief story that gets us into the idea of the conference? That's a good way to start. You're going to ask a single question. It doesn't necessarily need an answer, but it's a good thing to do to get people thinking. Are you going to ask people to turn to the people next to them and say hello, introduce themselves, if it's a networking type event? Now, any of these things are good, but just have some thought, have some practice, and if you can, talk to a few colleagues about what sounds like a good idea. You really want to get some views from your colleagues, your peers, other people, just to get a sense of what's a good way to start. Number 4, while we're about it, here are 3 things not to say or do when you're presenting. Number 1, do not tell us you are nervous. Lots of people feel that if they say, you have to excuse me, I'm a bit nervous, it will sometimes help. I promise you, it will not. What will happen is if you tell us you're nervous, we may not have noticed, then we will notice that you're nervous, and we'll notice the little handshake, we'll notice a dry mouth, we'll notice you're going a little bit pink, the little clammy hands will seal that. And as we see it, guess what? You'll see that we've seen. Then you'll start a feedback loop and it'll get worse and worse. Don't tell us you're nervous. Number 2, do not tell us that you are pleased to be here. That sounds strange, right? That's a positive thing to say. But it's a bit of a waste of a couple of sentences. Instead of telling us you're pleased to be here, show us in how you look and how you sound, and get on with that story or that activity or that question the way you're going to start your presentation. Third thing not to do. Don't keep asking your audience to G up, to come on, give us more applause. That really quickly becomes tiring. Because you think about it, here's so-and-so, give them a round of applause. They come on, they finish, oh, there was so-and-so, give them a round of applause. Here's the next person, give them a round of applause. Don't do it. Just save the applause to the end. If the audience decides to applause, great. But definitely do not keep on saying to the audience, come on, come on. It wears thin so quickly. Number 6, make sure you have water. But rather than the big chunky water bottle you might usually carry with you, get yourself a bottle of water that you can pour into a glass. Bear with me. Now, at least once during the event, there's likely to be a moment when your brain goes a little bit, what's next? Or there's a tech issue, or one of the speakers is slightly delayed. Something's going to happen, right? Now, what you want to do at that point is to have something that you can do that looks super relaxed. So all you want to do is just take the lid off, pour the water, and by the way, any notes you've got, have them here, because it allows you to look straight at the notes, pour the water, sip the water. It will slow you right down, and remember that there's a microphone, so every little sound of your mouth, which often happens when your mouth gets a bit dry, you can sort all of that. You get a coughing fit, any of those things, have the water, but have a bottle and have a glass. And number 7, I did say you need to know the first words out of your mouth. You need to know the last words out of your mouth as well. Typically, you want to say something about whether it's a summary or some of the key ideas that have come from the event. They could be from you or they could be whatever delegates have said, but you want something that brings it together. Number 2, is there going to be a call to action? Are you going to ask them to do something? If they want to know more, can they email somebody? Can they talk to you? Can they talk to the speakers? So think about what that's going to be. And number 3, last words out of your mouth, I strongly suggest are thank you. When you've done a thank you and it's a decent sized audience, they will applaud and you can leave. Job well done.